I'm bummed out I didn't explore more of the apartments. Point of no return. Same thing goes for the killing the tree thing. Point of no return, decide that one. I'm a naked man. What the fuck? There's a naked woman? Another naked man? Sleeping man. The man is fast asleep. He's smiling. He's hugging his knees with skinny, dirty arms. A swarm of flies is covering a black sore on his back. My hat. My coat. It's torn and covered in dry mud. They're completely destroyed. So the steep slope blocks the way ahead. There are many tunnels at its base. There's a tunnel. Examine? It's a meter-wide tunnel covered with a slimy membrane. Further inside, I can see the pulsating growths blocking the way ahead. I won't be able to pass through this way. So I think, because this whole game feels like some sort of Silent Hill thing, I think I'm trapped in the trees, the forest, like it claimed me somehow. Like like even when you think you escape, you just pass out in the forest again. Is this a path? No. Can these guys actually be woken up? Dirty, clumped hair covers the woman's face. She's murmuring in her sleep, clutching a rag doll filled with straw. Now. The moon has faded. The night is here. The sleep stole over my doll. So close. Your eyes. Can I wake her up? Woman doesn't react. I'm unable to wake her from her slumber. They don't wake up. And I can't. Old weathered clothes. So everyone's stripped down and just passed out and went to sleep. Now they're having nightmares that are probably similar to what I was dealing with. A fake life. A fake security, like you're plugged into the Matrix or something? I'm at the bottom of a huge valley. I feel dry, dusty earth pulsating under my feet. Take a drink again. Been lowly talking to myself for like 2 hours and I'm like, I need water. The man looks like a skeleton coated in skin. He smiles widely. So yeah, we're plugged into the Matrix. People are being put into a false reality and everyone past here is going to be dead, aren't they? Figure's dead asleep, unable to wake her up. That was a her? Huh. Shiny stone. So when this system catches you, it puts you unconscious, puts you in a fake reality that lulls you into some sense that you might be back to your normal life, and then it sucks you of all your resources till you die. It hums something quietly in its sleep, swaying to the rhythm of a simple melody. And then it absorbs you, I think. Fuck. Its face covered in mud and sticks, it clutches a shiny stone in its hand. I hear a faint whisper. Stasiak, my little Stasiak, sleep, Stasiak, sleep. A figure speaks to someone in its sleep, squeezing an old man's photo in its hand. Oh, look at the depth you can see when I move around down here. The pulsating mass of... Figure's talking to his sleep, in its sleep, moving its hand as if caressing someone with affection. The emaciated figure sleeps soundly, embracing the remains of a child. Oh, and this kid's dead. Figure sleeps on the muddy ground, resting its head on the chest of the skeleton lying next to it. It clutches a muddy brass cross in both hands, repeating some incomprehensible words in its sleep. Another sleeping figure. I think we're out of descriptions now. From here on out, everyone's just asleep. They will not wake up, and they're asleep. Okay, either every single person in this entire place is a woman, or it's just the default message for being able to not wake people up says her. Yeah. It's just a not entirely accurate message, probably. Shiny stones everywhere. Continue to pick them up, not knowing why. Happy times all around. They're asleep. They seem happy, even though they're emaciated and dry. Some of them lie dead. There's so many of them. Here I go, just picking up rocks over and over again, like that'll affect anything. I'm just running across people's bodies now at this point. If they can't be woken up, they can only wake up if they escape their own hell. The earth is covered with thick bundles of dry roots that creak under my foot. The old broken trees. And old broken trees. Insects abound. Creepy pulsing grossness. Look over there. Wait, are those ones awake? Look at those over there. There's a bunch of people reaching. That person's prostrating. Up there's conscious people. Do they want to save the people over here, or do they want to become unconscious too? It's just a light up here. A pleasant warmth washes over me. No. I shouldn't go in here, right? Do I have a choice? This seems like what causes people to fall for this, right? Let's not go near the light. Dialogue, maybe. Masiek. A man mumbles in his sleep. He's emaciated and dirty, but his face is radiant and calm. He clutches a rusty object covered with old beads. Some weapon? Listen to the murmurs. The man is talking in his sleep. There are only snippets of sentences, single words, spoken gently and slowly. It's hard to find any meaning in them. Push the figure? Leave. Without opening his eyes, the man clumsily waves his hand at me, then covers his head with it and freezes. Try to take the metal item from the man. Leave. The man waves his hand again. This time he grabs my arm. Without opening his eyes, he turns his head towards me. I recognize him. He's one of us. Try to snatch the item from the man's hands. Leave. Can you fucking hear me? I won't let you take her. That's not a person. The man clenches his teeth with the fury of a maniac. Saliva flows from his mouth. It's hurting her. You will tear her arms out. Hit the man and grab the item. Don't leave her. God damn. No. Oh my god. Flamethrower? Yes. Yes. You know how you kill a tree is a fucking fire. Give her to me. He's begging me to stop. He is not psyched about that. What are you doing? Give her back. He wants the flamethrower. But it's the weakness. This is how you would stop a tree, right? He's chasing me. That's uncomfortable. I can't go that way. It's not burning right away. What if I burn the light? Oh. It's some sort of organic wall. It crawled out of the ground when I set fire to the being. I can't go back now. Okay, well this is gonna get really horrible really fast. They're trying to fight back. They don't want me to stop it. But they're all mind controlled. Like they're all wrong. Okay, that fire's spreading. I should be a bit concerned about that, probably. Yeah, this is not a happy ending. I don't think I'm getting out of this. Oh boy. Oh boy. Nope. Goodbye. It was nice knowing you, Darkwood. Do I get to escape? Oh god, I'm under attack. Sorry, you're all gonna have to die. Wow, our character is doing some dark shit right now. They really took their sweet time crawling across, huh? Okay, yep. Okay. Oh. Now I'm a pile of... naked crawling man. Was that scripted or did I take too long? Shit. I was gonna say I kind of almost made it, but like, what was I gonna do? The exit was blocked anyway. Now I'm on fire. Great. A great fire consumed the woods for a couple days, gradually claiming many of its inhabitants. The fire consumed the last road leading to the heart of the woods. The talking tree towering over the flooded village. The doctor, who did not wake up even as the flames came closer. The three outcasts wearing old rags and scrap who hugged the trunk of the tree, of the talking tree, and didn't even attempt to escape. The elephant family, who did not leave their home at the swamp even as the flames started consuming it. The chicken lady, who set out into the woods in search of her sister and lost the way. And the last living inhabitant of the flooded village who, just before his death, managed to feast his eyes on the sight of the enormous tree withering in the fire. But not everyone perished. The little musician hid in the old hut with the trapdoor leading to the underground tunnels. When the fire went out, the trapdoor opened and the boy left the woods. Piotrek did not live to see the fire. Before the flames appeared, he rose above the treetops in his rocket made of scrap. As he looked through the small spaceship window, he smiled for the last time. The Milky Way stars looked so beautiful even now when moving away at a huge speed. Yeah, we saw his rocket ship. He crashed. A large part of the villagers survived, hiding from the fire in the vast barren clearings. When the fire went out and the incomprehensible whispers and calls ceased forever, they saw incoming helicopters above the destroyed land. The fate of the man with the wolf's snout remains unknown. Darkwood was brought to you by Acid Wizard Studio. These peeps. I have a mouse cursor here for some reason. Curious about that. So this was Darkwood. Huh. It's fantastic in being this like unique take on this particular camera angle and like a jump scare free horror adventure that has really thick atmosphere and a place to explore and a unique series of mechanics and structures to it with the way you can only see the direction you're pointing your mouse in, and the way they handle light and crafting and combat. Like there's a bunch of things that are all interesting and original about this game that are really cool. I had a feeling I was getting near the game, so what I did actually is I looked up a speed run. I didn't watch it all the way through, I just wanted to see how fast they would finish chapter 1. And actually what I found is that, yeah, people can run all the way through chapter 1 during a single day-night cycle. And one of the tricks is actually to leave your, you can leave the first HQ as being the one that's lit, and then you just run to chapter 2, get the key, give it to the wolf or so on, run through chapter 2, quickly get through a chunk of chapter 2 and just end it very abruptly. And in no time flat, you can just be in, I mean, sorry, I mean, the third region where you meet the doctor and everything. You can get the tunnel key and go to the underground entrance, and you can be in chapter 2 in like 10 minutes. I'm like, holy shit. That's what I was suspecting, but I wasn't sure I didn't realize how right I was about how much this game is like reliant on you wanting to very slowly poke around and explore as opposed to progress on purpose. Because if you just progress, the game's like, boom, chapter 2 right away. I'm like, huh. Chapter 2 seemed like it must be much less easy to just skip through. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to spoil anything for myself, so I'm careful about that. I want to keep the playthrough blind, but since I had finished chapter 1, I just decided to take a look at how fast somebody else might finish chapter 1, and I was like, what the fuck? So that was interesting to see. Yeah, all the NPCs you meet and the storylines you do and so on, totally optional. It's interesting. People will agree and disagree, I think, on whether or not that's good or bad, I suppose. I'm of two minds about it. I don't have major complaints about Darkwood as it exists right now necessarily, but I do find it somewhat odd the way that that challenge is handled. Admittedly, I played on the normal difficulty, and there are harder difficulties. There's one where you have limited lives, and there's one where you have 1 life. I didn't want to do a let's play on those difficulties because I don't think it's satisfying to have a playthrough just end abruptly out of nowhere and just be like, oh, that's where it ended. I died. The end. So for a playthrough, I was going to do the one where nothing happens when you die. The consequences are a little odd. So in this game, when you die in the mode that I'm in, some of your inventory is dumped on the ground, which is not very... It can be punishing if you die in a dangerous zone far away, but if you die in your own base, then that's a non-punishment because you can just pick it back up. The way they punish you then is that you get reputation every night for your local vendor. And if you die during the night, then you don't get that respect or reputation or whatever it's called. So you're behind on resources. It's an idea, but if you're playing on a mode where dying doesn't, where you have infinite lives, then getting fewer resources because of your death isn't a huge punishment. It's an inconvenience to be like, oh no, I'll be able to afford less stuff to keep myself alive, but what you risk having is disillusionment of the player, because if the player starts just dying over and over again and they don't have resources to help themselves survive at night, and they just get in this infinite feedback loop of dying over and over again, they're just going to become very, very aware of the fact that dying doesn't do anything, and all that matters is just doing the story objectives, and you can die seemingly infinitely. I don't know if that's completely true. Maybe eventually something really bad happens, but definitely, like, death was low on consequence in the game. So there's no middle ground, really. You pretty much have to be like, I have a few lives or 1 life, or death has no consequence, and the game kind of doesn't have teeth at that point, aside from just buying into the atmosphere, which I was definitely able to let myself do. Even when I wasn't sure that there was even really any consequences for anything, I was still generally unnerved by everything going on, and so that was still working for me, so that's a good sign. And that was a really cool, assuming they follow through with it, a really cool twist to have an area where it's like, this is your one chance. Like, even on normal difficulty, the one where death doesn't normally have consequences, it sounded like if I died, I would lose that story branch as a result. So that's interesting. I find it somewhat odd that this game only has a story mode. I find that strange. Mainly because, in my opinion, I'm one of the... I talked about, like, people might have different opinions on the way they handle death and everything, and how progression works. I kind of feel like they made 2 games and kind of stitched them together. There's one game which is the actual story, that's some linear segments and some branching segments dealing with, like, the doctor, the wolfman, the 3, the elephants, the talking tree, all the characters that are in the game. And it feels almost like that part doesn't benefit completely directly from the base management stuff. Like, And if anything, it makes them like, it's almost like they have to be more static and more restricted because they can't ever come to your base and be part of your base. So they're always at these, aside from the trader showing up at your base, the characters are generally these like disparate characters that are standing really far away and pretty much standing still, and you interact with them while they're just hanging out there. And it almost feels like, I could almost imagine like a more of like a Silent Hill or something, or a Resident Evil, where you're kind of progressing through an environment and talking to all these people and dealing with them, and that being its own game. It would definitely be shorter because it would just be about like encountering the story stuff and so on. Like there's a very interesting like 5 to 7 hour game in here, basically. That would be very different from what we have. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have this thing that is much more like this War of Mine, where there's a day-night cycle. You go out during the day and you can kind of fight things but kind of not, and it's kind of preferable not to fight things and just stealthily avoid them while you scavenge like a rat and get what you can. Then you go back to your base and you upgrade your workbench and you barricade things and you create defenses and you try to survive the night, and then before you loop back out to the daylight again. And that thing, I don't think directly meshes and complements with the story stuff as much as people might think it does. At least that's where I kind of stand a little bit. I think that if the game did go a little bit this War of Mine and just had a more of like an indefinite survival mode, that might work better. The way that this War of Mine handles it is that, and it actually would fit a little bit with Darkwood also potentially, is that in this War of Mine, you're just trying to survive a war, so you don't have a story, not an explicit linear story where you as a protagonist are going to solve a problem and save the day. There are various characters around you, and each of those characters have stories and progressions a little bit. Or at the very least, there are characters and scenarios, and you and your group of survivors that all have their own little traits and personalities and everything. You band together and you try to hole out in this base and scavenge during the day and try to, or I think you actually might scavenge during the night in that game. You have this scavenging and base defending cycle of just trying to keep your characters alive and safe. And then after a random amount of days pass, you survive the war. Like, it's not wildly different. Like, it's not like you can like have one playthrough that's like 500 days and one playthrough that's like 4 days. Like, there's like a range within a certain, there's a foggy range so that you don't know. They don't want you to be like, I'm gonna if I reach day 27 I win. They don't want you to think that, so they give you like a range of potential days where you might win with, and they don't tell you when those are. They just kind of give you a vague sense on the radio of how the war is going, and that might give you a hint at when it's going to end. And so that lets the mechanics shine. You have a very specific stake in that you have a limited number of survivors, and you have to keep them happy, or they might flee this location because they might think that they're not safe here and might try to find a different group of people to survive with. But also, when you're going out and scavenging, you can encounter other people, and some of those people will trade with you, and some of them are friendly, and some of them are just not happy to see you and want you to go away, and other people will defend their territory, and other people might even be violent raiders, and you can play as a violent raider if you want to, because if you take a gun, you can go shoot out some dudes and steal their shit and become this dark person, and that takes a toll on your party because the people in your party are normal humans that aren't cool with this kind of darkness, so it can affect their morale. Like, there's a lot of really cool mechanics going on there, and Darkwood does that too. It does have a mechanically driven game in there somewhere. It just, I don't know if it meshes with the story, and that is kind of highlighted by the fact that the story regularly pauses. The story parts of this game contradict the gameplay parts of this game on a regular basis. You have those dream segments, and you have like the thing I did in the tunnel, and like all these moments where like the day-night cycle gets paused, or health doesn't matter, or you get given a different inventory, and like so many things happen. It's like, I feel like they could have made two different games, one being this scripted, story-heavy, crazy experience, more like Observer or many horror games out there, and then one being this open-world survival game. Like, I can imagine them giving you a base, and maybe you can even construct additional rooms for your base, and you can like really expand the base building stuff, and your goal is just to keep surviving. And so during the day you go out and you try to scavenge whatever you can and try to use that stuff when you come back to upgrade your base, and and maybe every time you go out there, different parts of the woods might even like reshuffle and get replaced, because this is like a horrible like Silent Hill non-reality where stuff can just change when you're not looking. And so you go out there and do what you can, then come back, and like maybe your map will even get fuzzy here and there to indicate like, oh, that something's changed somewhere, and you just try to hold out the night. And maybe you have a group of survivors that have different lifespans, or if they want to make you feel lonely, then stick with the one character and yeah, just have a playthrough where you have limited lives or one life and stuff like that. Like that would be where the mechanics would shine. As it stands right now, it's more of a game that you play like an 0451 game, like a Deus Ex or Prey or something like that, where you have a goal and you can accomplish that goal pretty immediately. And as became clear, because I made all those guns and stuff like that and just never used them, you can get a bunch of tools, but they are not really necessary for the solving the story part. So you kind of just go out of your way and just invest yourself in the world for the sake of doing so, and spend more and more days in this society. So like someone could beat this game in 3 days, and someone could beat this game in 1 day, and someone could beat this game like I did in like what, 27 days, and someone could easily go for even longer than me, because they could probably explore the third and fourth regions more thoroughly than I did, where I went heavy on the first two and kind of started going a little faster after that, I think. And that's not necessarily wrong. It's not, I'm not saying that you can't have a game like that, because I like 0451 style games, these games that are like going after Spyglass Entertainment style video games like Dishonored, and I might even go back and play Spyglass's games one of these days, and if I get around to it. Like, that's fine. I just feel like there might be two different games that would resonate with me more, that were lost in the way that they were mashed together into one game here. And maybe no one agrees with me, maybe I'm just rambling like a lunatic or not, but I just, if nothing else, could you imagine there being a DLC for this game that is like more like This War of Mine? Would that, like, I think we can all agree that'd be interesting at the very least, right? Because as it stands right now, you can make a new profile and you can pick a difficulty, and your difficulties are: when you die, you drop stuff; when you die, you lose lives and then get game over, or when you die, the game's over. But you can only do those in service of beating the story, which is, you know, go talk to the wolf man, get the key from the chicken lady, and figure out which branch of the story you want to do with that, find the doctor, get in the tunnel, burn down that tree, I guess, because it looked like it was going to open to that place I found since I was behind the tree, or go through the tunnel. Like, I think you can go, if you did the tunnel route, I don't even know what's stopping you from just doing it immediately when you get to chapter 2. So like, it seems like a lot of this game you could do immediately, basically. So like, what's the challenge at that point? If you're playing on a higher difficulty where death has higher stakes, what's the point if beating the game just involves beating some scripted content that wasn't like the hard part of this game is surviving at nighttime when bad things are happening and the game's trying to murder you in your base, more or less, and a few like scuffles you can get into during scavenging. But like, if you look at all the story parts I did with like the Wolfman and the key, like, I guess the well was kind of dangerous, but if you know where to go already, you can probably get through it relatively quickly. Although I don't know if that's a randomized layout each time. But like, the number of times I had to overcome a gameplay challenge for the story itself was actually really low. And I think that highlights how the story and the gameplay are kind of at odds with each other. And so like, if they're going to have these difficulties and this permadeath ideas, I think that the audience should probably want a roguelite style mode to play, so that difficulty makes sense. Because the story holds up best for a blind run where you don't know what's going to happen and what's required of you, and you're kind of feeling it out the way I did. But once you've played it before, I don't know if it really has the same replay value. The map randomizes. I've seen a couple of people's map layouts for the game, and they look wildly different, like to the point where like the 3 regions are in different directions and they're different shapes and stuff like that. But you're still just going to the same regions and just looking for Like, you search for the correct location and then move forward, and that's basically all you do. And so while the seed is a little different of their placements, the tasks themselves don't ask much of you. It'd be, I guess, one way of making it make more sense would be if your workbench upgrades were more necessary. Like, what if you could only get through this thing if you made bolt cutters? Like, a bolt cutters needed to open this chain link fence or something, but you only get bolt cutters if you get like level 4 workstation upgrade, and then suddenly then the whole game makes more sense, because you can only upgrade the base generally by either doing tons of exploration or doing story missions, because a lot of story missions reward you with the key items you need for upgrading your bench. And there's also a few other ones that are like just in key locations, like secret spots or cool locations. So that would mean that you need to either explore the game a lot or do a bunch of story content in order to upgrade your bench, and then that's what you need in order to proceed forward. But instead, the really mandatory stuff is divorced from that. The key just exists, and all you need to get to the key is like a rope or a chain or whatever. And like the parts for the air compressor are just in a pile somewhere, and it's a separate device from your workbench completely. And the gas mask, the gas tank you need, is completely separate from the workbench. Like, the actual, once you start doing technical stuff with your hands and gadgets and stuff, that stuff doesn't involve the workbench. All of a sudden it's completely separate, divorced content. And I find that odd, how the story stuff and the mechanical stuff are so separate from each other. So I guess that's my main criticism, is that it's not, I don't think it's cohesive in a way it could be. And this, to be clear, this is not me like bitching endlessly about a game and trying to find a way to hate it. I'm just like, this is a criticism of a game I like. Like, this is a good game already, and I'm just noticing in what I see as an issue. And at the very least, like they don't have to replace, like, if in this magical world where they just do whatever I want, they don't have to replace the story necessarily. Like, the story mode could exist exactly how it is right now, and that's fine. Because for a blind playthrough where you don't know what's going to happen, it does its job. It's just that retroactively you're like, oh shit, that's all you had to do to beat this game? Like, there's like 5 steps and then the game's over. In retrospect, it becomes really brief. But they have this permadeath difficulty, and like this seems to suggest that they want you to replay the game because it randomizes. What's the point of randomizing it if what's the point of randomizing the layout if you're only going to play the game once? It's not like you're going to get it to feel it differently each time. So if you have randomized layouts and you have permadeath mode, it feels like there should be a mechanically oriented mode that's just all about maximizing your resources and trying to make a defensible base and looping that way until either maybe infinitely until you die, like some games do, or until you like reach a goal of some kind that's balanced for the difficulty level and stuff like that. Like, that's, I would love to see a DLC for that. I'd probably come back and play this game if there was a DLC that was a proper survival mode where stuff happens in that sort of way, that rather than playing the story again. Because I thought about the idea of replaying the story with like limited lives or one life for the sake of a separate, like a second series or something, but it would boil down to like running to the objectives and then beating the chapters really quick as fast as I can. Like, that's the optimum strategy at that point. Like speed running the game actually is like the optimum strategy in a way that it usually isn't, or at least it's more reasonable than it usually is. It's odd. Anyway, this has been a very long ramble. I've pretty much expressed the thoughts already, so that's fine. I haven't even talked about the ending. So, well, I talked about a lot of the ending while I was in it. So I was in an illusion, a nightmare, fake reality that's trying to make me feel like I escaped. And then I broke out of it, and then I destroyed the entire forest. Several characters die, several characters didn't die. Specifically, the Wolfman has an indeterminate fate, which is interesting. Because the Wolfman is one of the most mysterious elements of this game, because he's apparently a Wolfman, and like that raises questions. Why is there a Wolfman? I guess it's not completely crazy because there's monsters everywhere, but all the other people you meet are just people. So there's one Wolfman and only one, and that's odd. And you almost want to wonder like how he would he integrate into society? What happens when people discover him or anything like that? But apparently he just fades away Maybe he died. Maybe he just chose to retreat deeper into the woods and never be discovered because he just wants to stay there, which, sure, but it's just a curiosity point. One of the only people that you know for a fact survives is the kid with the violin. Interesting. Maybe it was good to do the storyline with the Wolfman and side with them, because maybe something different might have happened if I helped the violin kid. Same thing with Piotrek. I helped him build a rocket and he killed himself with it. What if he had, if I hadn't done that, would he have survived would he have survived overall? The fire? Would he have seen it coming and done something about it? Or the doctor. If I didn't tell the doctor about the tunnel, would he have not gone crazy in chapter 2? If I abandoned him in chapter 1, would he have just been holed up and stayed safe? Or the chicken lady. If I gave the key to the violin kid and he went to the pretty lady, was he just going to visit her and that's it? And was he just going to help me get forward from there? But does that mean that, like, maybe the pretty lady and the violin kid and the chicken lady might have all lived in that direction? Or maybe they would have died. Maybe I saved the violin kid by not giving it to him. And if I gave it to him, maybe he would have died under different circumstances, but in his loneliness, maybe he was able to protect himself in that one building he was in or something. I don't know. Lots of potential branching paths. Interesting story, interesting gameplay. Overall, good game. I just have really specific ideas of, like, how it might expand well, or how it could be a better game, basically. It was in early access, I want to say, for 2 years or something like that. I got a code for this game an eternity ago. This code was given to me, I want to say a year ago or something, and it was in, like, an early access, and I waited for a bit, and then it came live, and I'm like, oh shit, this game looks neat. So, thanks for watching like always. Hope you've enjoyed the playthrough and weren't too frustrated with all the dumb mistakes I made and the number of times I didn't use Scream. I'm mad at myself for that. And hope you enjoyed this rant you have apparently sat through. I think I have not insane ideas. And I'll see you guys next time.